in Miracles, lessons 100 through 103 say, God's will for me is perfect happiness. I share God's will for my happiness. And therefore, God is always saying yes to us. And our task is to meet God's yes with our own yes. Now, I call this a task because it requires some mindfulness. You see, quite often, we meet God's yes with a yes, but. Yes, but how am I going to do it, God? Yes, but why me, God? Just like Moses. Moses had a stutter. And when God said, I want you to do great things, Moses was like, yes, but me, God. This bush is hot, God. I got a stutter, God. What do you want me? How can I speak your word? We often have a yes, but. Yes, but what about the resources? Yes, but what about what I did back in 1978? Yes, but what about my abortion? Yes, but what about this? What about that? God chooses you for you, as you are. And an aspect of your function, as A Course in Miracles lesson 154 says, is I am among the ministers of God. God chose you, and the circumstances that you experienced, for those are the circumstances of humanity, and God needs you just as you. God is saying yes to you. Our task is to say yes to God, to meet God's yes with our own yes. Because you see, what happens when we don't meet God's yes with our yes is we meet God's yes with a yes, but, or a no. So imagine that God's flow is a flow of yes. And imagine that we are channels for that flow. But when it comes through our channel, if we're saying no or yes, but, God's yes gets twisted and distorted into something it wasn't intended to be. We get all wrapped around the axle. We get in conflict, and ambiguous desires yield ambiguous results. If we are in conflict, we're going to see conflict outside of us. If we are saying no, what do you think we're going to do? We're going to twist God's yes into a no. And God's will for us is that we meet God's yes with our own yes. For when you meet God's yes with your own yes, as A Course in Miracles says, there is nothing your holiness cannot do. For in that moment, when you are in yes, you are in God, you are in grace, you are in peace, you are in wholeness, not brokenness. You are in fullness, not partiality. You are in joy, not in pain. You are in an inspiration, not anything that would be discouraged. And when you are in yes, you are in heaven. And that heaven, that joy, that peace, that inspiration, that power flows through you without distortion and without it getting all bollocksed up like a kink in a garden hose, right? So God can pour through you fully. God can pour through you abundantly. God can pour through you in amazing ways when you meet God's yes with your own. So our task, and I'll repeat it again, our task is to be mindful of any no that we have that would distort or diminish God's yes. So be with me for a moment as we make that declaration. God, and if you choose to repeat this, please do. God, in this moment, I am mindful. God, in this moment, I am mindful of your presence and your will. God, in this moment, I am mindful of your presence and your will. Your will for me is happiness. Your will for me is happiness. Your will for me is yes. Your will for me is yes. Your will for me is to express your yes to all who see me, that they may know that you are yes, and so are they. So God, I release right now any no that would diminish your yes. I release right now any no that would diminish your yes. I release right now any yes but that would distort your yes. I release now any yes but that would distort your yes. And I allow the full force of your yes to express through me. And I allow the full force of your yes to express through me. Now you see what can happen when you turn a no to yes. For you just experienced DeAndrew saying yes to How Great Thou Art. When we were having discussions and putting together the program, I suggested it, and he's like, well, Reverend Webb, I'm just not feeling that song. I'm like, all right, do what you want. And so I was just so thrilled to see the yes God offered showing up as DeAndrew. Now, if you were thrilled with that, raise your hand. God's yes will thrill you in that same way. Amen? Anybody with me? If you're with me, raise your hand. Are you ready to be thrilled by God's yes? Are you ready for God's yes to show up beyond what your human mind can comprehend or expect or even dare ordain to create? Are you ready to be God's yes so that it can flow through you so wonderfully that the only thing that can happen or ensue is success and joy and fulfillment? Then share with me, I am ready for yes. I am ready for yes. I am ready for yes. Yes without condition. Yes without condition. Yes without condition. And just take a moment to breathe that in. Just take a moment to breathe that in. I am ready for yes. Yes without condition. So you might ask then, how do I get into the state of yes without condition? How do we get into the state of yes without condition? Well, there are 3 points that I'm going to share about that, and then I'm out of here. My 3 points for getting into yes without condition are: find your no. Number 2, find your no sayer. And number 3, be your yes sayer. Number 1, find your no. Number 2, find your no sayer. And number 3, be your yes sayer. So what do I mean when I say find your no? We may not always experience this, but we've all experienced consciously, but we experience it unconsciously all the time. So let me ask you this question. Has anyone here ever blurted out something and then thought, I don't know where that came from? Anybody here ever blurt out something and then say, I don't know where that came from? In truth, you do. It came from deep within you. It came from so deep within you, and it was so powerful that it evaded your filter, right? Has anyone else ever had this experience? It was so deep within you that it evaded your filter. It overpowered your filter because that was your truth. It was the part of the iceberg beneath the surface, the unconscious mind. And In that moment, it needed to come up, so it did, despite your filter. That may have been, your no is just like that. It may be unconscious. You may not be aware of it. And only when it finds you can you find it. So let me give you a couple of hints on how to find your no. Number one, my first hint on how to find your no is it is never outside of you. You think your no is that person who told you no when you tried to go to an Ivy League school and they said, well, why can't you just go to Pitt? You think the person that told you no, you think the no is outside of you in the form of that person who didn't let you do this or didn't let you do that or didn't agree with you or approve of you doing this or that. And you think that's your no. But I'm going to give you a hint. Your no is never outside of you. And let me give you another hint. Your no is never in front of you. So let me work with this. You think your no is the thing that is showing up right now. But the thing that is showing up right now is the crystallization and the amalgamation of a million micro no's. That which shows up for you took time, energy, and repetition, and sadly, miseducation in order to form. So it is the aggregation of a million little no's. So again, you've got to find your no. We've got to find our no's. And it is never outside of us, and it is never the no in front of us. For the no in front of us is just the crystallization of a million little no's. So where can we look to find the no? We can look within. A Course in Miracles, lesson 16, and I hope I can read this without my readers. A Course in Miracles, lesson 16 says, everything you see is the result of your thoughts. Your no is inside you, and it is projected out like a projector, for you are like a projector. That's the part I added. There is no exception to this fact. Everything you see outside of you begins and ends within you in the form of your consciousness first, before it takes form outside of you. Therefore, your no is not in front of you. Thoughts are not big, nor little, nor powerful, nor weak. They are merely true or false. So what you're thinking can either be no, or it can be yes. And your spiritual superpower is the power of choice. And you can choose yes, and you can choose yes without condition. But you first have to understand where the no is. Addressing the no that is in front of you is like cutting off a leaf from a tree and expecting the tree to go away, right? If you cut off the leaf from a tree, what's going to happen? Another one's going to grow in its place, right? Because you're not dealing with the root. But if you want a tree to go away, you deal with it at the root, amen? So you ask yourself, what is the root of this no? And what is the no beneath the no? And what is the no beneath that no? And you will get to the root of the no. The root of the no is always one of three things. The root of the no is always a place where you do not believe God loves you, you do not believe the universe supports you, or you have not given yourself permission to be in alignment with love. So we have to find the no. And then when we find the no, we're like, well, where is this coming from? Well, the no is not coming from your higher self. The no is not coming from your God self. For your God self says yes, for your God self is yes. The no is coming from your false ego, your body monkey mind, as Lorraine likes to call it. Your body, your ego, and that part of you that has forgotten that you are eternal. That part of you that has forgotten that you are holy. That part of you that believes that you are a name and a rank and a serial number and that you are not divine. That is where the no lives. So you have to meet that, you have to find that no where it is. Barry Lipton, who wrote an amazing book and does amazing work with the biology of belief, says, our beliefs determine our experiences more than our genetics. So your no is not in your body. Your no is not in your DNA. Your no is not in what you believe your ego's destiny to be. Your no is in your belief. So no matter where you started, if you started in the darkest, dankest, and hopelessness of no, you can get to yes. It has nothing to do with where you started. It has to do with what is within you as your consciousness and shifting your consciousness from no to yes. Barry Lipton said, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe. And this is so important. You don't attract what you want. For when you want, this is fascinating. For when you want, you're saying, I don't have. So your task, our task is, I believe myself to be loving, lovable. I believe my life is deserving of ease. I believe my relationships are deserving of harmony. And as you believe that, you vibrate with it. As you vibrate with it, you emanate it. As you emanate it, its reflection is drawn to you, and you are drawn to its reflection. So, your inner no-sayer is your ego. It's your human body self with your monkey mind. It has been miseducated. Your ego has been miseducated. Your ego only knows lack. Your ego may have believed no to be true because your ego has run into so many closed doors. But guess what? The power of God within you is much greater than any power outside of you. Because within you, as you meditate, within you, as you pray, within you, as you practice the presence of God, within you, as you give yourself permission to be inundated by the light of God, within you, as you give yourself permission to experience the grace of God, within you, as you give yourself permission to remember that part of you that never left God and never felt like a prodigal child and never felt inadequate and never felt guilty and never felt undeserving, as you give yourself permission to experience the seed of God that is you, that seed of God only knows yes, just like your false ego may have only known no. And let me talk with you about this seed of God within you. Let's talk about it a little more, because there is so much light on the planet right now. There is so much grace on the planet right now, and your heart has opened so much right now, and your mind has opened so much right now, and your energy has opened so much right now that God has access to the seed God planted within you. Listen to this now. You have given God access to the seed God has planted within you, and through the connection with God that you have nurtured, God is watering that seed, nurturing that seed, and bringing that seed into fruition. Now, what is that seed God placed within you? That seed that God placed within you is the part of you that doesn't know no. For that part of you, in a meditation that came through recently, they call it the time before time. Before we believed ourselves to be separate from God, we knew only bliss. Before we knew ourselves to be separate, before we believed ourselves to be separate from God, we knew only comfort. Before we believed ourselves to be separate from God, we knew only joy and peace and abundance. And we have an ancient memory of that. That is the seed of light and the seed of truth that God placed within us. But there is so much light right now that we can access that place that never knew lack. We can access that place that never knew struggle. We can access that place that never knew rejection or condemnation or evaluation or separation. And when we access that place that only knows yes, we can be the yes God created. When we access that place that only knew yes, all of the no's that we that we learn can be unlearned. All of our miseducation can fall away because our initial and true education returns. This is the light God placed within you. This is the light God wills to be remembered. This is the light God and God's light exposes and brings up right now. This is your inner yes. And that gets me to my third point. Be your yes sayer. As you give yourself more experience in sitting with God, get into your higher self. Direct the light of God to those places within you that are saying no. God, I obviously have a no because it's showing up in my life. I let you into this place, that your light, that my memory of you and my memory of the time before yes can turn this no into a yes, can transform this no. God, I open to your divine alchemy. God, I open to your divine grace. God, I open to your divine will. God, I open to your divine presence. God, I open to your divine power. Turn this no into a yes, for this no is not your will. God, I've been possessed. Not like Linda Blair, with Progresso pea soup and a head spinning, but you've been possessed by a spirit of no. You've been possessed by a spirit of doubt. You've been possessed by a spirit of lack. You've been possessed by a spirit of guilt. And you can release that to God, that God would replace that with its original yes. God replace, and it's like Microsoft Word, because life often is a crude approximation of God. I do lots of weddings, right? And I'll tell you a little secret. I have a wedding template, and I start with a wedding template and then I customize it to the couple who's getting married. But with a wedding template, I always do this thing called find and replace. So last week it might have been John and Debbie who got married. The week after that, it might have been Aurelia and Charles who got married. The week after that, it might have been John and Jim who got married. The week after that, it might be Saroja and Ken who got married. You know what I do? I do a find and replace. Find the name John, replace it with Saroja. Find the name Mary, replace it with Ken. Well, you know what? God can do the same thing with our no. Find and replace the no within me with the yes you offer, that my yes, that your yes can meet my yes. When where the two are aligned, all things are possible. Get into your higher self, direct the light of God to the parts of you that are saying no, and ask yourself, what does yes look like? What does yes feel like? Get into the energy of yes. Allow yourself to be the yes. Allow yourself to experience the yes. Allow yourself to live the yes. And as you merge with God, become the light of God you were meant to be. And remember, God wills this for you. And when you merge with God, when your will and God's will are one, your will and God's will must be done, for God is pouring it through with so much power that it can't not happen. As A Course in Miracles said, a happy outcome to all things is sure. When God is in the mix, when the power of God overpowers the power of your no, the only thing left is yes, and it is inevitable. Your task is to say yes. Your task is to say yes. Your task is to be in that yes. Your task is to flow with that yes. Your task is to alchemize that yes. Your task is to energize that yes. Your task is to give that yes permission to flow to and through you. There's this beautiful song. If you knew what God asked of you, would you say yes? God only asks that you release any no. God only asks that you accept God's will. God only asks that you recognize that God's will is beneficent, that you recognize that God's will is abundant, that you recognize that God's will is for ease and for peace and for harmony and for joy. And when you recognize it, that you release all the no's that have been tattooed in the recesses of your mind and branded on the energy that of your humanity. God is saying, yes, I can make it easy. God is saying, yes, I can make it fun. God is saying, yes, I can make it abundant and effortless and joyful. Your task, our task, is to say yes without condition. Yes, yes, yes. And that's what I want to share with you today. If you knew what God asked of you, would you say yes?